Yay, we're live.
Hello,
Yay.
everyone.
We did it.
We did.
Maybe.
It was
maybe did
very
it.
much
We
a
don't know
group
yet.
effort.
Oh, Elizabeth's
Hi,
here, so somebody
Elizabeth.
found us. Yay.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Can I see the chat on this thing? I don't know. Let's see. Oh,
I don't know
gosh.
if you can.
Oh,
You
gosh.
might have to.
I did bad things. Hold on. Okay. All right.
Hi, Annie. Oh, I'm glad you're finding us, everyone. What kerfuffle. Oh, well.
Yes. Oh, there was a word in Emily Davis for kind of a synonym for kerfuffle that I didn't know before, and I wish I could remember it now. But there's some very unusual and good words. Hi, Sharon.
I saw one too, and now I can't even remember what it was.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hello, Amanda.
I don't remember even what it meant now. I just remember reading it and going, what was that?
Yeah.
I need to go back and look that up later, but I was reading up until 7:30, so.
You just finished the book? That's awesome.
Well, full disclosure, I did not, but I think I finished enough of it that I can talk about it.
Yes, and thank you, Janelle, Janelle set us up so you're able to see us all on YouTube tonight on StreamYard. Which maybe I should just start getting acquainted with StreamYard, because I like how you can post comments on the screen.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and StreamYard, like, it's so easy to use, and if you set it up with your YouTube account, it instantly goes live on YouTube. You don't even have to worry about it. So
okay, that's amazing. That's really cool.
It's very convenient. Wow. Well, I'm glad everyone's here and they've been chatting even on the other one. That's great. Hi, Elizabeth. Hello,
I'm sure
Shelley.
Elizabeth at some point has had technical issues. Anyone who's behind the camera at some point has them.
Yeah.
And hi to Shelley. Yay. Well, so it's funny because I had reading sprints like last night and Chelsea was there, and she was surprised to hear that this wasn't like a 5-star read for me. Because I feel like, Chelsea, you and I, out of like you, me, Rainey, and Angie, our ratings are the most similar. Yeah. So I think this was just a little too just one vignette onto the next vignette for me. And particularly the more kind of tangential of a character that it was about, kind of the less invested I was. I'm just very it's interesting because I'm very much an overarching story kind of person, but there are a few exceptions. Ironically, the Nancy Russell Mitford books, but I go in and I don't expect a plot, and I kind of like do little taster reading sessions with it. Whereas, you know, when I sit down with something like this, I like there to be this kind of overarching plot. I mean, it was her beautiful writing, so it was still an enjoyable reading experience. I'm so glad that I read it. But because we have read more plot-oriented ones, and I think also my expectations were wrong, because I thought, oh great, it's going to be the Emily Davis version of Miss Claire Remembers.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because she could have included all the same information about her life, but done it from Emily's point of view, and I would have, I don't know, felt more emotionally invested. But kind of the message of it being that you don't know all the ways that your life have touched other people. I mean, I feel like the ultimate example of that, negative and positive, is A Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life. like I love that kind of these little ripple effects that your life has. Like there was one time when I was 7 and I was at an outdoor birthday party, and there was an older man, like in his 90s. He had his license taken away, and he was driving. There was he was driving like by the yard, and he had a stroke while he was driving.
Oh.
And he almost ran over me. Like I saw the car coming, and it's only coming at like 5 miles per hour, but in a yard, that's really fast with a car, and maybe even faster. Anyway, and I was panicking so much, I didn't think, why don't you just jump out of the way? I kept like walking backwards. And a grown-up came and just picked me up and like swooped me out of the way. And I thought, maybe, you know, what if they hadn't done that? You know, if that person hadn't been at that party. So also I liked how we got to see how different, what is Miss Claire's first name?
Dolly.
Okay, thank you. I love seeing how different the temperaments of Dolly and Emily are. I think it's really cool when there are friends that they're like, we are not the same person, and that is okay. Like we have different temperaments, and I just loved like how she snuck up on the boys that were spying on her house.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? And also like the guy who drank away the fund money.
Yes.
He could have beat her. Like he could have beat her, but because she came in like guns a-blazing, he was like, "Oh, I'm scared." Yeah. So I did enjoy it. Just it wasn't quite as much of a story as I was hoping.
Here's a couple of comments. Shelley says her favorite part of the book was the first few chapters.
Yeah, same.
And then Sharon said, I loved the common theme of how Emily Davis impacted all those different lives. I think because Emily didn't teach in Fairacre, more of the vignettes were of people we didn't know before.
Yeah.
And that's true. And that's fair enough. Because those were some of my least favorite parts of the book. Like if people were remembering a direct story of how Emily helped them, I liked that. But then there was one, like the kid that she helped him when he was a kid, but when he was a grown-up, he went over to Italy and had an affair. I was like, why do I want to know this about you? I don't care. I don't like this, and I don't want to read about it.
And then the only tie-in they could do was, well, Emily would approve that I'm not going to cheat on my wife anymore. I'm like, yes, most people would. Yes.
Exactly.
Although, Janelle, you've read through this series before?
Most of them, yeah. There was a
Does
book here
Billy
or there
Dove,
that I hadn't.
do we see Billy Dove later on, maybe?
I don't think so. He wasn't familiar to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was interesting. There were two affairs that like they had their fling and then they just never told their spouse about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we need to talk about Ada in a second here. Elizabeth says, I loved that theme too. That's a good point about Emily not teaching in Fairacre. It's more about people from Caxley. Yes, that's true. And then Annie says, I loved Susan Warwick's story. Her memory of the snowdrops and Miss Davis prompted her to leave London and go back to her parents' country home. Yeah.
That makes me, Elizabeth Brink in the comments, I love seeing your posts with your snowdrops that you planted.
Yes.
So fun.
Yes. So since we were talking about the affairs, yes, let's talk about Ada for a second, because yikes.
Oh, Ada.
I love too how kind of she's just filled with rage. When she sees Emily, there's no like embarrassment. It's like she instantly goes to rage. And I will say though, I think this is going to sound super sketchy. I don't like, I understand why Billy Dove just didn't want to tell his wife. I think if he was like resolved to never do that behavior again, then it would just be upsetting. Obviously, I think people should come clean, but I kind of understood his logic with that, if that it makes sense in a weird way.
Yeah. I understand it because he didn't want to. He didn't bring it up. He didn't want to bring it up if it was never going to happen again. And he didn't want to disrupt his boys and all that stuff. Like,
and I guess
that
he went up in my estimation when he decided not to go.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to say I misread the beginning of that part of the story, and I thought it was like a really sweet story of how he met his wife, and I was like loving the
I
whole.
did too.
And then it was
I
like
know, totally.
he didn't want to tell her about his wife and kids. I'm like, what? I was enjoying this like romantic story of meeting someone in Italy. I'm like, what a great story. I'm like, I have to flip back and be like, oh, okay, no, I hate this story.
Because I think it just really passed over him growing up. And so I thought it was still talking about like his parents, like having the 2 kids. And it just, something about the wording. It's really funny.
Yeah.
I saw the part about him being like saying how he was a devoted husband and a churchgoer and a father and everything, but yet he found love in Italy. So I was like, oh man, there's going to be another affair. And then, but then as I'm reading it, I'm like, is this about him meeting his wife? Did I miss that? So like, I read that over a couple of times. I'm like, nope, nope, he's cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
I think as she wrote about it so romantically.
Yeah. Whereas Ada's story was very different. It was not romantic at all. And the two of them knew that what they were doing was wrong and they didn't care. And like it seems like in my mind, like they were 2 very different stories of adultery. Like they were both still adultery and they were both still wrong, but Ada's felt worse somehow.
Well, because she planned to go off for a weekend with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think partly it's because we know who Ada is. We know her from other things. We don't have any, we don't care about this Billy guy and his wife and kids because we don't know them, other than the kid that we met a couple of chapters earlier. But we know what Ada's like from her childhood, and we know her rebellious nature. So we know she's just like, I'm just going to get what I want. I don't have my husband right now, so I'm just going to go and hang out with this guy.
Yeah.
But
I have to say, I did like this way of Miss Reed telling us about Emily and what she was like. Because at first, when I first started reading the book, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be basically the same story as Miss Claire Remembers.
Yes.
Because they like she even made things, and I was like, oh dear. And then I thought, how old was Miss Reed when she read this story? Maybe I just need to give her grace, and she's too old and she can't remember. And then it changed, and I thought, okay, that's fine.
That's awesome.
I actually liked that she chose to do something very different, but to give us basically the same result, that we learn more about Emily and her character through these stories that people remember of what she was like. So Annie here had a good point. She said, it was the most touching story to me of how Emily carried Susan on her back. That was so sweet.
That's one of the parts I haven't read yet.
Oh. So you haven't read Susan Warwick's story yet. Hers is right towards the back. Yeah.
Okay.
So Susan
I still plan on finishing it.
Susan had been sick with measles and she was off for quite a long time. And when she went back, she was still recovering and was still quite weak. And the class had gone to a farm to see snowdrops in the garden. And Susan was just really tired at the end and they had to still walk back to school and she just couldn't make it. So Emily gave her a piggyback. It was very sweet. All right. Elizabeth says, I loved Billy Dove's story and thank you. I am snowdrop obsessed. Ada's story was my least favorite part. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really like Billy's. I mean, obviously nobody's going to like an adultery story, but like, I didn't feel like either of them really had sufficient remorse for what they had done.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And I almost feel like Ada had more because even though she went straight to rage with Emily, she also saw the look of like, you are just an awful human when Emily looked at her. So she actually kind of made her have guilt about that, like, and it even says that, like, Emily was the first person who made me look at myself and not like what I see. basically.
Right. Yeah, that's
And
right.
so like, but Billy Dove doesn't have that. He was just basically like, yeah, at least Miss Davis would have been okay, or would have approved of me not going back to Italy and seeing this woman. I'm like, okay. So,
Yes.
I think it's interesting to have those two stories because it kind of parallels what Emily didn't do with her ex-fiance. Like
exactly. That's a great point.
They had the opportunity there kind of when they met in the path, and they both realized like they weren't happy with how things had ended up. He wasn't happy in his marriage. She wasn't happy single. They both still loved each other, but they decided not to act on that. And so it's kind of like a juxtaposition with the other two. I feel like that's why she put in like two other random kind of adultery stories in it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good point. So they weren't random. They were also, in a sense, highlighting Emily's character, that because she loved Edgar until she died, but she never acted on it, or she never and she never tempted him to cheat on his wife. Yeah.
It made me really sad for him that he was kind of a victim of timing. If he had just been able to, it's like he couldn't even process that he needed longer. And then here's this woman who, you know, she knows nothing about his past, about, you know, kind of how vibrant he used to be. And that's kind of like the easy way out. And he was just he was tired, you know? And yeah, so he made me really sad. And she just seemed like a really tyrannical wife. I mean, just like he was always in the doghouse, and like kind of the wife that, you know, asks for help all the time and then critiques every little thing about how he does when he's helping. Just seemed a miserable existence. And there's a proverb that says a nagging wife is like a dripping faucet.
Someone was saying before that they were hoping that we would, in the other book, that they would have gotten more about Edgar, and so I was glad that we got more about Edgar in this one and got it from his perspective. And you know, I mean, it was sad though that he ended up living his life with regret, basically. Yeah,
it's really, really sad.
The vindictive part of me says, good for you, buddy. But
yeah, that's right. You made your bed.
But at the same time, like, this nurse who should have known better basically took advantage of his PTSD. So, I mean, she was way more to blame, I think. But still,
she was basically predatory.
Well,
and also now that he and she was just fake. That wasn't how she didn't act at all the same once they got married. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Elizabeth has commented on the Caxley Chronicles. Have you guys read any of those?
No,
I haven't either.
I was going to ask if there was another series that maybe we would see those characters.
So she says that the chapter about Ada's recollections about her boyfriend from Caxley, they were characters from Market Square #1 in the Caxley Chronicles.
Okay.
How many are in the Caxley Chronicles?
I don't know. I haven't read any of those. I don't think I have.
I'm Googling.
Oh, good.
Looks like
all right. And sorry?
Looks like only 2 books in the Caxley Chronicles.
Okay.
Is one of them the Howards of Caxley?
Yes, that's the second book. There's the Market Square, and then the Howards of Caxley.
Oh, okay. Because I have that book, and I thought it was a standalone because I'd never heard of Caxley, or like it just seemed like a standalone. I didn't realize. Okay, because I haven't read that one yet, but I do have it. All right. Elizabeth says, I like Billy's story because of his early trauma with his father being missing in action and his mother's attempted suicide, and how much Emily provided solace. I think that impact was quite profound on Billy. I did like that part of the story when he was a child. Like, it was just so, he was just so awful. Like, it was just so, and then I was picturing Emily and Dolly out in the storm with their little lanterns that they had to cover because of the the blackout rules, and yeah.
Yes.
Crazy.
It was at that part that I was like, man, this is a very intense Miss Reed story.
Mm-hmm.
When they're talking about the wife, and I'm like, what? We don't have attempted suicides in Miss Reed. What is this?
Yeah. Well, it was very real, right? Like the affairs and the attempted suicide and people missing in action and the effects of the war, and like, yeah, there was a lot. And then even the chapter with the doctor and the things that the doctor had to deal with in the community, like it was all real, very real, very real life stuff. Yeah.
I liked that though. I liked that it wasn't all just like rainbows and sunshine. Not that it ever is, but it's just,
but then
like,
again,
it's
I
been
think
a little
that
bit
also,
more tame.
Yeah. It also highlights Emily's character, right? Because there were serious consequences and potential repercussions, and she still marched in, like exactly what you were saying, Kate, about when she marched to that guy who drank away the money. Like, she was seriously in danger from that guy. I honestly think he could have really hurt her.
Yes. Yeah, so Shelley says, Mrs. Lamb was my least favorite character. Her selfishness of not wanting her adult sons to move away and wanting them to provide her with an income was infuriating. Maybe because I had 2 adult sons. Well, I think that's a healthy sign then, Shelley, if you think that's not a good dynamic to have.
Yes.
What Mrs. Lamb had with her sons. Oy.
Yeah.
I love this one Miss Pringle quote.
Oh, hey, Jess. Sorry, go ahead.
So Mr. Willett saw her and she broke the nose. She was so excited to share. And he says to his wife, "Old Misery Pringles just stopped by," said Mr. Willett disrespectfully. "Got bad news as usual and enjoying it."
Yeah.
Oh, Miss Pringle.
Yes.
That was the chapter I was on right before we stopped, or before we came on here.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, I have to read the Miss Pringle chapter.
Yeah.
If I read nothing
Oh,
else,
yes,
Shelley.
Oh, sorry.
Shelley said that she loved how Emily Davis encouraged Mrs. Lamb's sons to move away. I love how she did that publicly in the post office. So that Mrs. Lamb didn't have a choice. She had to be like, okay, that is what I said.
Yeah, that's totally what I want them to do.
Yeah.
Another quote that I like says, "Perhaps that had been the secret of Miss Davis's strength," she thought suddenly. "She went at her own pace and had time to relish all the lovely natural things in Springborn and thereabouts. And when the occasion arose, happiness, fed by inner security, could succor the weak and give, as Susan could so poignantly recall, strength." Oh, and then I was telling Sharon, she last month posted on Instagram about how she read the Diaries of a Country Parson, James Woodford, and I love that he was referenced in this one. And she said that, this isn't her first rodeo with Miss Reed, and that's where she heard about him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. There was a passage that I really liked.
Elizabeth saying. Oh, sorry.
What did you say?
Oh, just Elizabeth's comment. It's like, it was a like verbal.
Oh, you're frozen, but I can hear you.
Am I back?
I think you're back.
Oh, yes, you're back. I was hoping that. I was thinking it was mine, because sometimes with StreamYard, mine just freezes.
Right. Oh, I was just saying with Elizabeth's comment, how she, manipulated Mrs. Lamb. And I love that she was so clever. Like, she didn't yell, she didn't scream, because that wouldn't be effective, And so it was just so even keeled and well thought out.
She's just so clever. Like, I loved the story right at the beginning where she got back at that bully by like carving in his zucchini so he couldn't display it at the fair.
Yes!
Like, all of her like revenge or tactics to like not manipulate people is kind of, maybe, I don't know, that sounds bad. But to get her way with people, it's also clever and like not obvious. Not the obvious course of action. Like, she thinks up these very unique things to do that are really tailored towards like what will impact this person or change their behavior.
Yeah, like she really understood human nature, and she knew the people that she was interacting with. She was like Miss Marple in that way, right? Like she understands what people are capable of and what motivates them. She knows the best way to get the best out of people, or to get them to do what she knows is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
No, that totally cracked me up. The zucchini story, I just loved it.
So funny.
And she was just little too, which was so great. They described this little girl stepping up. It was me.
I liked the picture in the book of that.
That's
too.
what I was just gonna look for.
Yeah.
I don't think the book I had this time. The book I had this time didn't have any pictures.
Oh man,
That's too bad.
They're pretty pictures.
that's like that's like the best, one of the best parts.
Yeah.
I love the picture right at the very beginning of like Emily and Dolly walking.
Oh yeah,
Evening
that was
walk.
cute.
So beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
also the description was stunning.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here it is. Why is it so confused? It's backwards. Okay, there we go.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, she's just
all
little.
the boys
That's
looking at her
sweet.
like,
Because
good for you.
the teacher hadn't even asked any of the girls. He was like holding the boys back, and the boys are all like, "It wasn't any of us. We're not even lying this time." Like,
Surely those sweet little girls wouldn't have done that.
No. We don't do
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
So Sharon said that she loved in the Billy Dove story when he was having trouble with a bully at school, and instead of giving him sympathy, she basically said, "Life will always be hard, but you'll survive."
Yep.
It's totally true, right? Because for a lot of the other stories, she marched in and she fixed it.
Mhm.
And the best thing for Billy to hear in that situation was, life is hard and it's not always fair.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to take it.
And maybe that was part of why he never went back to Italy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Not that he really made the best decision in the moment, but.
No. She says, "I didn't realize that a marrow is a zucchini." Thanks for that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was gonna look it up. I was like, what the heck is a marrow?
a funny story about how I found that out, because I think that's like a very British English term for zucchini.
It is.
And I'm vegetarian, and so I wouldn't eat like marrow. To me, is bone marrow.
Right. That's what I would think.
One of the times when I was at a restaurant in Zambia, they had like a quinoa and baby marrow. And they had it marked vegetarian, and there's like not very many options. So I kept asking, like, "Are you sure there's no meat in this? Are you sure it says marrow?" They're like, "It's vegetarian. You're fine." So I ordered it, and it's like, "Oh, it's like little baby zucchini pieces," and that's how I clued in. But I was like convinced I was gonna get some sort of like strange bone marrow.
That's funny. I always come across that word in the Poirot stories because he's always talking about retiring to the country to grow vegetable marrows.
Oh
yeah, that's true. Okay. I didn't even think about that. I haven't read too many Poirots yet. That's my next goal in life.
Oh yeah. So then Elizabeth said she liked that part too about life will always be hard. And then she gave him a sense of how that other boy had struggled when he started at the same school, which is smart, right? Because sometimes, you know, you just see a bully or someone who is being mean to you and you don't think about why they might be behaving that way.
Yes.
So there was a passage that I marked too, and I marked just because I liked it when I read it. Now that we've been having this conversation, I've realized that there's so much books in this book where she's juxtapositioning things, and I didn't really pick up on it. Like, I think it was in the back of my head, but it never really, until the first time, Chelsea, when you said that, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's what she's doing in this book. She's juxtapositioning situations and things, and that's exactly what's happening in this passage too. So this is in, hang on, chapter 10. Oh, the flight of Billy Dove. So when he was a boy, day after day dawned cloudless and warm. Thistledown floated in the soft breezes. Butterflies, drunk with nectar, clung bemused to the bedelia flowers, or opened and shut their wings in tranced indolence upon the early Michaelmas daisies. It was impossible to realize that just across the English Channel, terror and violence held sway. At Springbourne, one might have been swathed in a golden cocoon as the harvest had gathered and the downs shimmered in a heat haze.
Wow.
And I just thought, like, it's just beautiful, but right in the middle of it, she said, but this world exists in the same world as the fighting that's going on in France. Like, it's, you know, and so again, it was another juxtaposition of things.
That is it's a real paradox that you can here's that beauty, that they're wonderful things that you can savor and enjoy. And even, you know, when some of these people, their sons are off, they can still laugh about something that's funny, even when there's this ache, you know. It's interesting. She's good at capturing that.
I have this large print copy. Was the only copy I could get from the library.
Ooh,
I do like the cover though.
It is pretty. I feel like you super just fly through large print. It's very exciting when you're when you're reading one.
Ooh.
I did. I read it so fast.
I basically have my Kindle set up large print. For some reason,
I saw that in one of your things before.
Like, doing the same size font that I would in a regular book feels like way more work on a Kindle. So I definitely have it up a lot.
I'll be right back. I have to turn my heat down. I am like dying.
Roasting.
Shelley says, when I think about mean girls in school, it never occurred to me why they were that way. Also, puzzling how sisters such as Dolly and Ada, or Ava, is it Ava? I thought it was Ada.
I think that was a typo. I think it's Ada.
But how they could be so different. They are so different. And it's hilarious too, because that part where Ada was like, maybe she's going to need to move in here. And the son was like, maybe that would be the best thing. But Ada and Dolly both, neither of them would want to live together.
Yes. And I love, it makes me think of in the 2008 Sense and Sensibility miniseries, Marianne says at one point to Eleanor, Marianne, you are so strange. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be you.
Yeah. Totally true.
Yes.
I'm worried about Miss Claire now, because we saw in the first couple books how much she was struggling before Emily moved in, both like just socially and kind of having gumption in life, but then also even financially. I'm worried what the solution is going to be, since obviously she's not going to move in with Ada. Correct. Yeah. Too. Her nephew was like started calculating the cost of what they might get for her cottage.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Well, and Dolly and Emily were kind of like platonic life partners. And so I don't know if, I don't know how much longer I would want to be around then if I didn't have any like close friend like that. You might lose motivation.
I have a pair of great aunts. Now, in this case, they're sisters, but they have lived together for almost 40 years. Probably 40 years. My Aunt Beth married my Uncle Robert, and they were married for 8 years, but he got polio, and like there were a couple of years where he was in an iron, very ill, and then he passed away. And then my aunt Gwen moved in, and Beth and Gwen have lived together ever since. So like, and now I just think like they're in their 80s now, and I just think if one of them goes, I honestly can't see the other one lasting much longer, because you know, especially Gwen is the younger, but kind of the less capable in a way. Like she really depends on Beth for a lot of things, but they've lived together for so long. Like it's just like, in a way, like married couples, you know, like my parents have been married for more than 50 years. I just think like, how odd would that be to suddenly not have that person anymore? But I mean, specifically in this instance where it's not a married couple, where it's companions, you know, I don't know. I just, part of me, I was fully expecting Dolly to die by the end of the book. I'm going to be honest. I was.
Yes. No, me too.
I was going to ask that. I was like, is Dolly still alive at the end of the book?
Yeah. No, I thought kind of after that walk at the end, I thought she was going to be like, you know what? I've had a really rich life, even with its disappointments, and then just peacefully go off in her sleep. Yeah. Although maybe she's still enjoying life enough that she feels like there's enough delights to find in each day.
I did like the end. The comforting cycle of the seasons continued unchanged. The sowing, the growing, and the reaping. Dolly Clare turned and made her way homeward with a grateful heart. Life went on and was still sweet.
Yeah.
And I just thought, you know what? Like, that's the funny thing about this book is about people remembering someone who has died, but it is so full of hope about life, you know, which is amazing. Not everybody can write that, you know, with that understanding of, and I think part of it is maybe just our current culture. We don't talk about death. We don't like to talk about it. We avoid it as much as possible. And I don't know that's healthy.
Yeah. Really. Well, that's why I really appreciate in the Korean television that I watch, they are very they just talk about it, and they're very focused also on like ancestors and honoring your ancestors with how you're living. And I think it's pretty refreshing compared to how and now I don't like now how there will be, instead of a funeral and just being like, death is really hard, you're separated forever. People have like a memory of life or celebration of life service. And it's kind of, I get it. You want to honor the wonderful things that someone has done in their life, but it's also like they're at the end of the day, they're gone. And you'll have your memories of them, but in a few generations, there aren't going to be people that knew them personally.
It's interesting with all of that too, because I think cremations are becoming more popular now, and there's a lot of ways where that makes sense, but what you miss with a cremation is standing at the graveyard watching the coffin being lowered into the ground. Like there is moments where, you know, you have to like confront death, right? If you're gonna grieve appropriately and then move on, and having a graveside service like that is definitely confronting death, you know, or even just a viewing of your loved one before the service. I lost my grandparents, all 4 of them, when I was young. But my parents let me go to the funerals, and I'm glad that they did. And I viewed the bodies, and I'm glad that I did, because, with my grandma, I was 14, I think, and, but I looked at her, and, she is dead in a coffin, and she's not ever coming back, but I think it's hard, but it's healthy.
Yes. You know what, though? So when Peter was like 4, we drove by a cemetery, and he was asking me what it was, and I told him, and then he's like, oh, and I could see he's thinking, like the wheels are turning, and he's like, like looking like almost like gleeful, and I was like, what is going on in his head? He's like, later he's like, Mama, I have an idea. I want to find a scientific way to bring Papa back to life. So this is his grandfather. This is my husband's father. And so then he told Dave, and Dave's like, okay, before you start that project, I want you to read this book when you're older. It's called Frankenstein. And it'll help you reassess.
Oh, dear.
Because it does seem like, oh, I know what I can do.
I like Dave's response to that. That was very
because he takes, you like to have your ideas taken seriously, when you're a thinker like that. So I love that he's like, okay, Peter, well.
Let's talk again after you.
Interesting idea. You also could be crazy, but
yes, mad scientist.
Yep, mad scientist, but we'll work with it.
Yeah, Elizabeth Brink says both Dolly and Emily have to live into the paradox of their personal tragedies with the beauty of nature and the love of their students. That, I think that's something that if you have a project or a vocation that you're passionate about, that can really keep you going. Something to just get out of bed for every day. And just something like, this is what I'm going to do. I really don't feel like doing this, but I don't really have a choice. I can't just lay in bed for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And Elizabeth is right. Dolly is still connected with people. She's not completely on her own either. The Annettes were, so she's going to be on her own, but she's going to have people that are going to come and check on her. And, she's still got a community.
Does she need a pet?
Oh, go ahead.
Does she have a pet?
I don't think so.
No.
I wonder if she needs
money's an issue, though. I can't see her having a pet because it would just cost money to keep.
Yeah.
Even like a cat that's allowed to hunt down wildlife?
Oh, maybe.
I don't know. Maybe that's idealistic.
They talk about them feeding a cat at one point? Or was that in another book I read?
Yeah, but it wasn't their cat that was just coming around, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, this is a totally random question, but I can hear it, and I want to see if you guys do. Can you hear the extremely loud TV that my neighbors have going on right now?
I can. I think
can you?
Underwater.
Yeah, I can hear something. I didn't know what it was.
It's funny. I can hear it.
I am assuming that it is my neighbor's son watching TV because I don't think his mother is home. So
he's cranked the volume. Oh my goodness.
He's actually living in the TV program with it that volume.
Apparently.
It totally sounds like kind of that muffled water
what the
gurgle.
Oh,
really
this
funny.
show better be over by the time I'm going to bed.
Well, you're not the only one. Elizabeth said she wondered what it was.
That's so
what it is.
funny.
At first I was like, is that coming from my area? And I'm like, I think it's my neighbor's.
That's so funny.
But I'm going to assume that his mother is not home.
That's very funny.
Or maybe her
living in a townhouse.
Yeah. There's a saying about 2 deaths where you die physically and then later in the generations you die in memory.
Ooh. Wow.
That's like
The second one's almost worse, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's why I really enjoyed this book, despite it being vignette-y, and I know I'm like one of the people who's critiqued the other books for being too vignette-y, but as someone who really enjoys like genealogy and ancestry research and stuff, I love books that have a thread about seeing the impact of people beyond their death on people, and so I think that like made it worthwhile to me. Even though it was kind of vignettes, they were all tied together with that thread of this is how Emily has impacted people and how her memory is going to live on in people's lives. So I think that's why it was a win for me, even though it was very disjointed and not like a regular plot. But that's also like the movie Coco.
I have never seen Coco.
Me neither.
Really sweet.
I've heard it's very good. I've only heard.
I really quite enjoy it, and they have the whole premise is about the Day of the Dead celebrations in Mexico. You need to, in order to come like pass from the spirit world back to Earth, you have to have your photo on the family altar. And then if once no one remembers you, you kind of like disappear out of the spirit world and you don't have the opportunity to come back to Earth anymore. So there's this one character whose daughter has dementia and she's forgetting him, and so he's kind of starting to flicker in and out, and he needs to pass a photo on to get the photo back to Earth so that they can remember him again, the subsequent generation.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like kind of to be remembered past the few generations, you have to invent penicillin or something.
Yeah. Or have ancestors who are fascinated with, genealogy.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love. I'm like, sometimes I get, really far back and I'm like, man, no one's like said this name aloud probably in like 200 or 300 years. Like no one's thought about it for
that's crazy
centuries. And now I'm finding out about them and thinking about them and remembering them.
I love Elizabeth says that after Peter reads Frankenstein, he needs to read Tesla's Attic by Neil Shusterman.
All right. I don't know what that is, but
I don't either. Yeah, it's another reading assignment.
I know what the heck. I don't understand. He's usually not this loud. Maybe it's
so funny.
I can't even tell. Like maybe it's feedback on my computer.
It definitely sounds like another I was wondering if it was an echo, but it definitely sounds like something else. I thought it was an echo at first, and then I thought it was my husband's TV, but it's not.
Oh.
I was like,
because it almost sounds like once nobody's talking, it goes away. But I don't have any other device on it. Like on.
It kind of
very
confused.
It does, because when we all stopped talking, I didn't hear it anymore. I tried muting myself to see if it was me, but it wasn't.
See, I'm going to mute myself.
I'll mute myself.
Oh, I suddenly don't hear it.
Yeah, it went away. That's weird.
Who's the problem?
Did it come back when I unmuted myself?
Oh, yes, it did. Oh, it's
so
great.
It's because I'm on my phone. I think it's just the way my phone is picking up sound. Sorry.
That's okay. I just
it's not
totally thought it was because there is like a very loud 16-year-old boy that lives next to me, and he often is very obnoxiously loud.
But not this time.
Not this time. Sorry, kid.
Yeah, well, and it's funny.
Elizabeth,
it didn't occur to me when you were all saying you heard it. I'm like, I don't hear it. It's so weird.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
It's the ghost of Ada because she heard us talking smack about her.
Yeah.
She is the type who would haunt too.
She is. Yep. She'd be like, don't talk about
She
me.
does.
I am a perfect person.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Sharon says at the end, Dolly says Emily didn't want a stone to mark her grave because she didn't want a permanent memorial. And the doctor responds, she left her own memorial. She'll never be forgotten.
So
I was
sad.
thinking about that too, about not having a marker. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, to not have a marker. I mean, he's right in a sense. She'll never be forgotten. Well, she will. She won't
Yeah.
be forgotten by the people that knew her, but they'll eventually pass on themselves, right? So,
Mhm.
unless, of
But I
course,
guess-
they tell stories about her to
Yeah.
their children. But because their children never knew her, there's not the same impact. So,
Yeah.
the likelihood of that continuing is rare, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think Kate's frozen again.
I was gonna say she hasn't moved in a while. I think she's
I don't know.
frozen.
That part
Maybe
made
she's
me
playing
really sad.
statues.
Oh no. Come back, Kate. Come back. Oh my.
Oh dear.
Oh,
Having struggles today with her.
I know we are. Technology does not like us today.
Elizabeth, and this is,
That's
I
just
agree. She thought it was bold of Miss Reed to start the novel with Emily's death.
I know. I did
Yeah, I agree with that. And
too. It's okay. It's often my fault, so I'm okay.
I kind of expected it. I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna die.
Yeah, I did too. But she was like, "Oh, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed early." And they were like having this nice, serene moment of her looking out her bedroom window. I'm like, "She
Yeah.
did. She gonna die."
It is a bold move, but I liked this framework for the story of a way of telling about Emily's life. I thought she found a different way to do it, since she's had plots like that in previous books. I liked that she found a different way to do that this time.
It was
Yeah.
also interesting finding out how everyone found out about her death.
Mhm.
Like that some people are getting the newspaper sent from their family or, word of mouth. But I found it really interesting how many people were getting newspapers sent.
Yeah. That guy who sends it to his brother in Canada, I was like, yes, but where? Where? They never sent.
There's like Canada, just somewhere.
Not like it's the second largest country in the world or anything.
It's so small. It's just whatever.
We take our little crumbs of representation excitedly. It's like, ooh.
They just passed it around at the one paper to everybody in Canada. It's easy. It's fine.
That's right. Not a big deal at all.
Nope.
I got so excited when I found that Agatha Christie had written a short story that was partially set in Banff.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I excitedly ran and read it, and it's like 30 seconds. Like the guy goes to Canada, interviews the maid, and goes right back. And I was like,
Oh.
What story is this? I don't think I know that one.
A Sign in the Sky, I think. Let me double check. I read it last year because when I was in Banff last year, and at the old hot springs pool, it's like Agatha Christie vacation there, and they had pictures of Agatha Christie at the place and everything. And then
was this on her grand tour when she went with Archie in the 20s?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she also featured Banff in one of her short stories, so I rushed back to my Airbnb, and I'm like, I need to read this. It's so brief,
Oh, that's kind of disappointing.
I need to go to Banff. It looks really nice.
Oh yeah, it's
really
pretty
close to
gorgeous.
me.
Yeah.
If you ever come, it's 3-hour drive from my place. 4 hours.
Ooh. Oh, okay.
The Sign in the Sky. It's a Harley Quinn short story.
Oh, so I must have read it, but I must have missed it.
It's really blink and you miss it.
I must have not
I
been paying
think that
attention.
it might be like the entire story was set there, and it was
Right.
I feel like I read a story that was kind of the same way, that they referenced Banff, and then that was pretty much it. Like they weren't there for very long. But I don't even remember what it was. But I was
Annie
like, oh, Chelsea's
says,
been there.
Yeah. My favorite Miss Reed book memory is the student who brought her flowers, is taking flowers off people's graves. Now, what book is that from, Annie? That's not from the book that we read, was it? Was that from this one? I don't remember that, but that's awesome. Actually, to take flowers from graves and give them to your teacher, that's awesome. Oh, and Elizabeth wants to go to Banff. Oh yes, Banff is beautiful. Yeah, it's gorgeous. The forests and the trees and the mountains, the wildlife.
No.
You'll see a bear, maybe an elk.
We saw bears and elk on the road.
As long as they stay over there, that's fine.
They're on the side of the road, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you go kind of late spring, because they get attracted to come and lick the salt off the road. That's how they get their nutrients. The same way you would give like a goat a salt lick if you were domesticate like a farmer. They come and get minerals off the salt that's sprayed on the road to stop you.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Kate.
Oh, it's storming there. Yeah, we got that
right.
last night, so you're probably getting it now. Although that seems like it took too long, if it's the one we had last night, to get to you. She's not that far away from me.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else anyone's burning to say about this book? Kate, if you have anything, type like the wind. I always find whenever I'm trying to type in the comments in live shows like this, I always feel like I have to do it really fast for some reason. And then I'm like, I have the worst typing when I try to go really fast. And then I'm constantly having to correct myself. And then I'm like, what's the point now? Because
I always respond. Like if I'm in Krista's live or something that has like hundreds of people, I'll respond to somebody and then it's like, 10 minutes later and they'll read my comment and they'll be like, I don't understand what that's in reference to.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you would have if like 20 people hadn't commented in between.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm in Pennsylvania, Shelley. So I'm like on the I'm in Western Pennsylvania. So closer to Pittsburgh.
Anyone in the comments have anything about the book? Your favorite part, your least favorite part? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I really like this
story for George Lamb, because I think it was the last book we read, right? Well, the last book was Village Storm, when he gave that donation to save the church roof. And I felt like at the time I didn't really understand, like, why is he so emotionally connected to this town still to want to donate to the church. So getting more of his backstory and kind of the impact that Miss Claire and Emily had in his life, it made more sense to me. Like, oh, that's why he was like willing to like literally move heaven and earth to fundraise for this church roof.
Right. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, that's not far away from me at all, Erie. That's like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Always snowing in Erie, I feel like. Doesn't matter when. It's just always snowing in Erie. That's a lie. I know that. I've been there when it's not snowing.
Even in July?
No. I go to the beach in July. There's some nice beaches in Erie. But I've been there in May when it's still snowing. And That's fun.
All right. Well, if that's all that we had to say,
I think so.
I did enjoy it. I ended up I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads because I did enjoy it. And I think too, like I come to misread with a different mindset than other books. And I kind of expect vignettes now with her. And so normally I don't really like that kind of book, but I know that I'm probably going to get at least some of that with a misread. And so maybe because I'm expecting it, then I don't mind so much. And then when I add in, I just love her writing. So then, you know, I give her grace, I guess, for for the vignette style.
I think I like the vignette style as long as everything has a tie. You know, like
yes,
it's snowing now. So, well, to be fair, it's snowing here too. So
I don't like it if it's just all completely disjointed, but if there's a framework that it fits into, then I don't mind that at all.
I remember reading the Olive Kitteridge book, and I felt like there was very little that tied it all together. Like the name Olive was referenced, but it had like it was not even nearly the amount of ties she wasn't tied to everybody like Emily Davis was tied to everybody. Like these were all specific stories about how she impacted their life more or less, you know. But yeah, so I like it whenever that happens. But
no, I think this was my second. Like Miss Claire Remembers is my favorite from the series so far, and I think this was my second favorite of them all.
Yeah,
so like I'm pretty sure I give it a 5.
Yeah,
I think because I saw a few chapters, but
I feel like this style, it held them together more than some of the other vignette styles. Like an early one in the series, Village School, maybe. What's the one where it went through a year in the school?
Oh,
I think that is Village School.
I think it is Village School. Yeah.
So, and I did like that one, but the only thing holding it together was that it was stories about the school. So it felt a little more floppy, you know, whereas this one had a definite purpose, right? It was to tell us more about Emily and her character. And so everybody, even the stories that weren't about Emily, the way those people reacted were because of how they had previously interacted with Emily.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's why I liked this one. It was a tighter construction, maybe.
Right.
And I also liked, I struggle sometimes when all the vignettes are like children's issues and children's stories.
Me too.
So, I mean, we had a couple little flashbacks to her childhood, and obviously she's still helping school children in some of them. But it was also just in general. It wasn't all like people losing their lunch.
It was her peers and right.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Annie, we're reading the books in order. So Kate, which one is she's got it coming up here.
I think okay.
She's got it coming up. Elizabeth says the Thrush Green series is a more connected story. I still haven't read any more other than the buddy read that you and I did, Rainey.
I know, I haven't either, so we should buddy read the next one sometime.
We should.
And just go through the whole series that way.
Yeah. Kate says we'll be discussing Tyler's Row and the Christmas Mouse on March 31st.
Yeah. So we must be reading them in order if we're reading a Christmas story.
Yeah. I have the Christmas Mouse, but I don't know about Tyler's Row. Is Tyler's Row also a short one? Or is it its own book?
You know,
I was going to look it up, but I have.
They're almost all available on Internet Archive, Janelle. That's how I've been reading them for free.
Oh, that's amazing, because I couldn't join in the discussion in January because I couldn't get my hands on the book. And I didn't know about Internet Archive. Okay.
No, they're all on Internet Archive for free.
Did we
Most of
discuss
them-
that that's just a Canadian thing? Internet Archive.
I don't think so.
Is it really?
Okay.
I don't think
Oh.
so.
Maybe it's not. I didn't know about it. So I
Canadian
couldn't.
version of Project Gutenberg that has like extra books because our copyright laws are slightly more relaxed than American copyright laws. So sometimes books are out of copyright in Canada before they are out of copyright in the States.
Okay.
But the Internet Archive ones, you can only borrow them for an hour at a time. So you just like borrow them, read for an hour, your however many pages you can get through in an hour, and then usually I've never had anyone else in line to misread book. Shocking. So I usually just keep renewing or come back to them in 2 days and pick up and get another hour when I have some reading time.
Okay.
Okay.
Huh. I'll have to look that up.
Apparently, Tyler's Row is a full-length book. Elizabeth says
Okay.
it's 240 pages.
Okay. I better get on that then.
Yeah.
Because I left this one thinking that it was like a short. And I mean, it probably was shorter than some of them, but I was like, oh, I can read that in a few days. And it's part of that Miss Claire one that was like real short. And then I started reading it and I'm like, oh no, it's not okay.
All right. Well, this has been great. I always love discussing a book. I usually end up, if I liked the book, I end up liking the book more after a discussion. And if I didn't like the book, then it depends. Sometimes I've been inching towards, oh, I actually may have liked that better than I thought I did. Or, nope, I was right. I really didn't like that book at all.
Depends on what the rest of us say.
So this one did make me think I did like this book.
Yeah.
I think I liked it more. I like it more now than before our discussion. So
Yeah. Yeah, because it got us thinking about things we didn't even think about, like the juxtaposition of things and all
exactly.
that.
Now I'm like going back through. I'm like, oh, right.
What else did you?
I missed this and I missed that and I missed that. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, what do we have here?
Okay.
Oh, Kelly, that's very nice.
You have been missing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know if I'm going to fit in those two books for March because I'm clearing the decks for March Mystery Madness.
I know. I've got all the things for March Mystery Madness and Middle Grade March. It's like Tyler's Row is probably the only non.
Are you able to combine them, Rainey?
Yes, some of them I will.
March and
yeah. I think I'm going to read the Aggie Morton. I'm going to read the first one in that. And then Ellie and I from, I forget what she changed her channel's name to. Cozy Chronicles? Yes, I think that's
so,
her.
Yeah.
She and I are going to buddy read Shady Hollow, which is a murder mystery that involves talking animals. So I'm excited about that.
Is that the Beatrix Potter ones?
No, it's not, but that just made me think of that. I might have to read the first one in that because I keep saying I'm going to read that series too. So I'm going to have a lot of middle grade. Oh, and then we're Jess and I are going to read the next Myrtle Hardcastle.
Okay.
We're on like book 4, so I think we're going to read that one. So I got plenty of middle grade mysteries to read.
Perfect. I don't really read middle grade, but I love hearing about how many mysteries there are for middle grade. Because it was hard when I was in that age group myself, like Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and Trixie Belden. Like you really didn't have a lot of options. And now there's so many options for kids if that's what they like to read. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like Nancy Drew at some point, like she grew up with the kids, I guess, but it like didn't stay at like a middle grade level.
No, she didn't. I mean, I started reading Agatha Christie when I was 12 because there wasn't anything else. And I was like, I need my mystery, so I'm going to read Agatha Christie.
Right. I wasn't into mysteries back then, but now I As long as they're cozy, as long as they're not like super
Not too much.
gory or anything.
Yeah, I understand that. I have a level of gore myself.
Yeah.
It's probably higher than it should be, but
it's probably definitely higher than mine, but that's
Elizabeth, yes, I'm working on my TBR too, and at this point it's basically my entire cart, my entire book cart, which is not gonna work. I have to winnow that down a little bit. Oh dear. All right. Anyway, all right. I guess we should say goodnight.
Yes, probably should.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Janelle, for hosting on the fly.
Not a problem. Thanks, Kate, for being here in whatever method was possible for you. Thanks, everybody, for the chat. It was nice to chat with you about the book. And yeah, have a great weekend, everybody.
See you next month. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.